Hello everybody, welcome back to my team selection video. This is Pras, you're on the FPL Wire, and this is my wildcard special. Now, if you're listening to this, it's not the first time, hopefully you're listening to me this week. I've done a lot of content in a lot of places, talking about my wildcard, talking about my picks, so I'm going to keep this as succinct as possible, at the same time giving you my final views after the press conference in terms of where I stand with the wildcard. So let's get right into it. And also, it's been 2 weeks and I have no desire to talk about Semenyo and me not owning Semenyo. So I'm not going to talk about the last week. Whatever. I think it's been too long. Really, that's the main reason. It's been too long. So we don't need to talk about it. So let's go to how I've thought about this wildcard, right? I mean, how have I built the wildcard? So if I look at the solo projections from game week 8 to 12, I think there's two fixture blocks that you need to target when you're looking at a wildcard. You have to look at game week 8 to 12 and then 12 and beyond. You can argue it's game week 8 to 11 even, because 12 is when Liverpool's fixtures really get good. But let's do 12 for the sake of it, because the thing is that Arsenal's and Chelsea's fixtures are actually really good as well until 12. So, for example, Chelsea play Burnley. So that's the thinking in terms of blocks. So what stands out when you look at attack, this is, these numbers, there's a lot of numbers here, but this is what Rob T presents on a weekly basis. So every week you see, X team playing X team, expected goals. This is what this is, but rolled forward for the next 5 weeks. So this week's numbers will match Rob T's, for example, that Liverpool are the highest, Man City are the second, and those are the teams expected to score the most goals. After that, it's a little bit of a okay game week, nothing huge. This is why people not on wildcard, a lot of people are thinking, let's just roll. And I get it, because the bottom teams are all playing each other, right? I mean, Burnley is playing Leeds. Who's Wolves playing? Wolves playing Sunderland. So there's a lot of bottom teams playing each other. So I completely get the fact that you don't have to have certain players for certain matchups. I think it's a good spot though to enter uh, picks from Chelsea, picks from Arsenal. You should have done it last week if you weren't on wildcard anyway. Potentially from Liverpool, even though not many people have Liverpool on their wildcard. Maybe Newcastle, although Newcastle again was better last week. So it's a week where you don't have to get the picks unless you're jumping on some Chelsea picks and you're not topping up your Arsenal picks. So that's where we are with the attack. So in this fixture block, the couple of things that stood out to me was Arsenal is actually very close to Liverpool. So when we talk about Liverpool attackers, so this is something that I had to think about when I was thinking, shall I go Salah instead of Saka? Well, Salah is 4 million more, but his expected goals in this team are not as much higher, or for the whole team are not so much higher than Arsenal's anyway. Because Arsenal in this period play Burnley, they play Sunderland, they've got home games against Crystal Palace and Spurs, and this week, of course, Fulham, which is not as great, but it's still good. So it's actually consistently their two expected goals on average for these weeks. Liverpool is slightly higher, Man City is slightly lower. Then the next bracket is Chelsea and Newcastle. Good fixtures for this period, and pretty much in 9.5. Although I would put Chelsea in the above bracket, Newcastle in the next bracket of teams where everybody has decent. Whether that's Bournemouth, Man United, Brighton, Crystal Palace, Newcastle. They're all in that second category in terms of attack. So I'm of the mind that anything below Crystal Palace, I'm not interested now for the rest of 10, 15 game weeks. So all our picks should come, especially in attack, from this category of players. Now, of course, some people are looking at Leeds United. I don't blame them, because their next two are not too good, too bad. After that, of course, you perma bench them. So if it's an enabler, I understand it. But other than that, you can see why there's a lot of clamor to get players from these teams. Now, exception to the rule could be West Ham. I've seen people look at Bowen. But again, look at Bowen in the context of 6 expected goals in the next 5 games versus a Voltemade who's 8 expected goals. Of course, goal shares are different. Bowen has a much higher goal share. So that's what makes them closer. But all I'm saying is you can understand now why people are saying, you know what, I'm just going to not spend on Bowen. Because if it's 6 goals that I'm getting in 5 weeks, expected goals, then, going there, maybe I can do better. I can go cheaper. I can go somebody else. I can go for dead spot as my forward. And that's the thinking. And Bowen hasn't been on my wildcard, primarily also because West Ham's fixtures after these 4, after the next 4 or 5. So West Ham, when do they play Burnley? Yeah, it's game week 11. After game week 11, their fixtures are terrible. So you're almost booking in a transfer. It's 4 weeks. 4 weeks is a good enough block, but it is terrible. So that's what jumped out here. Let's go to defense, game week 8 to 12. Now, this is where Arsenal double defense just becomes a no-brainer. Like, I've been debating between, shall I go double Arsenal defense versus double Arsenal attack? I mean, the gap between Arsenal and the next teams is just huge. So people who are looking to change up, a Raya or whatever, like, don't go without double Arsenal defense. Like, unless you're changing Raya for a Timber, in which case, again, I would say it's not that necessary. But just Gabriel and Timber are just good picks in this period, especially if Timber gets, 5 of these games. If he gets 4, not the end of the world, but ideally 5, that's like huge. Every single week, they're the top. Like this week, they're tied with Man City. Next week, they're slightly below Chelsea, but we know about Chelsea defense. Not many people have them anyway. Game week 10, they're the top defense. Game week 11, they're the top defense. And game week 12, they're the top defense alongside Fulham. So it's just a very good defense. So double defense, this is where, I think that's where I will land. I'll talk about my draft. There is still a chance that I go away from it, but very, very likely it's going to be Timber and Gabriel. After that, Chelsea is next, and I've been desperate to fit a Chelsea player in, like whether that's Sanchez, whether that's somebody else. But you see the difference here is, look at the difference between Newcastle and Chelsea. So here it's like, 0.25 in terms of expected clean sheets, so 25%. But if you then compare in the next period, which is 13 to 19, there's a pretty big difference. So Newcastle, especially if you're planning to keep your keeper long term, I mean, not everybody's looking to make a keeper transfer. This is 2.76 versus this. So now it's a much bigger gap in terms of holding your Newcastle player. So with goalkeepers, I've also thought, you know what, let's try not to be too clever here. Pope is just a good pick, and that's, a Newcastle defense is just a good defense, even in supposedly tougher run in the next 5 games compared to a Chelsea. And this 5 games, by the way, includes Man City as well. So if they're close to Chelsea, including a Man City fixture, it's not too bad. So what else stands out to me? I think that was it. So 13 to 19 attack. I think this is also important. Look now where Liverpool go. Liverpool and Man City. And I've talked about this in many videos. This shouldn't come to us as a surprise to you. Liverpool and Man City just go way top. And then there's a gap. Then there's Arsenal. And then there's another gap. And then there's everybody else. So if you can get to a setup here where you can have Salah and Haaland, you're laughing. And of course, Salah then goes off to AFCON from game week 17 onwards. You can then move to, then their minutes will also become clearer, right? You'll know after Salah who is the guy. Is it Isak? Is it Gakpo? Is it Wirtz? Yes, I said Wirtz. It could be anyone. So you want to get your Liverpool triple up. So everything that you're doing today should lead you to saving transfer so that by game week 12, you're able to get to a Salah. Now, the answer could be, hey, I'm just going to free hit and get Salah in game week 12. But then in game week 14, when he's home to Sunderland, what are you going to do? Maybe not have him. That's okay if that's your answer. Or free hit in 14, find a way. I'm not telling you the way. Find your way, depending on your team. The easiest way, the laziest way, and for me, the best way is to just say, I'm going to be really robust with my team, not make any transfers for the next 4 weeks, and then land in game week 12 with 4 free transfers, and then decide what I want to do. I could free hit that week, carry my 4 transfers. I could then decide to do a Haaland to Salah switch if I really wanted to, because Haaland is playing Newcastle away at that time, and then do the switch back because maybe your team is amazing and you don't need any other transfers. So all of that is possible. Hold off. But you need Liverpool from game week 13, absolutely. This is why wildcard game week 13 would have been great. Man City, I think Reinders comes back. I don't see Reinders in a lot of wildcard teams. I think at this point, if his minutes continue to hold, or maybe there's a second City attacker, this is the time to get them in. Maybe it's also a time to get a Guardiola in. So game week 13 onwards, good team, Man City. But it's also the Christmas period, and Man City and Christmas period don't go hand in hand in terms of rotation and other things. So this is going to be a tricky period. We'll talk a lot more about it, but that's where we are. Let's come to game week 8. Game week 8 now coming back to earth in terms of this week. So look, this is the thing. Like a lot of, the models were higher on Salah for this week in terms of, he has a better fixture home to Man United. You see how markets have just adjusted and said, look, no, Haaland is better. Now this is goals. Of course, Salah can have assists, and in fact, in models, if you adjust minutes a little bit, you come out pretty much similar in terms of expected points. But it's about having. Sorry, my child just came in. It's about having the right. I've lost my train of thought now. Apologies. So I was talking about Haaland and Salah, and I think it's about having one of them. And at the moment, given the form that Haaland has, I think it's okay to just go with Haaland and not Salah. Not ideal. I would have loved to get Salah in this window, But this is where we are. Now, Isak is more interesting. If you believe that he's going to start most games now, a little bit like Timber or Eze, get him. I think it's a great window to get him. I don't believe that. I think he could miss 2 out of 5 games. Like he could be on the bench, or if he starts, he could get a few 60-minute subs. Still, if I'm wrong, he'll be in by game week 13 for sure. But if I'm right, it's okay. Like then you can wait. So I don't think Isak is, you have to put your neck on the line. Like, go back to these fixtures and say, if you're going to compromise, a João Pedro, well, Chelsea's attack is actually really good for the next 5 games as well. So you might as well just watch Isak and then get him for game week 12. That's when you really want him. This is the money game for Liverpool. So plan, if Isak becomes the pick, then plan to get him by then. Gakpo could be the pick. So that's where I am with Isak. Then it's interesting. Mateta is pretty high. Gyökeres is pretty high. Obviously, these are strikers potentially on penalties. They will be pretty high up in terms of expected goals, but they don't really bring a lot of assists. So even though Saka, for example, is here, he will have much higher expected points than Gyökeres because his expected assists are actually really high as well. Remember the corners. So that's what makes Saka for me the better pick compared to Gyökeres, even if, in my view, Gyökeres takes the next penalty. Like, if you take the next 3 penalties, maybe Saka takes 2. So it doesn't matter who takes the next pen. It's about longer term, who do you want to hold? And my belief is that Saka has better route to points. Calvert-Lewin is here. It may trigger people, but this is markets. This is not people on Twitter, so you can take it up with them. But he has a good fixture away to Burnley. Next week he has a great fixture as well, home to West Ham. So people who are looking to bench boost, I would suggest you need to give a long, hard look at him, because he enables a lot in your team. Like, if you're trying to force a Bowen because he has 2 next good fixtures, and then you'll have to transfer Bowen out, well, consider Calvert-Lewin, because then you don't have to transfer him. He can just sit on your bench until the time where you need to extract money. Then you can sell him. But he doesn't bother you, because the rest of your team is a lot better if you save that 2.2 million or whatever that is between him and Bowen, or Voltemade, or João Pedro, whatever your fancy is. Bowen is down here, also good numbers, home to Brentford. I'll say something pro Bowen. I don't want to completely dish the pick. I think there's a chance he plays up top. He could play alongside someone if they've moved to a 3-5-2. I don't know if that's better for him, but at least he'll be closer to goal. He is now listed as a forward. If he was a midfielder, I would say that's a good thing, because if he scores that extra goal, he gets that extra point, he gets a clean sheet point. But under Nuno, I'm not a fan. And look at this, Voltemade has pretty much similar expected goals, even though Bowen has a much better fixture, home to Brentford versus Voltemade away to Brighton. Gordon is the same, exact same numbers as Voltemade, by the way. So between Voltemade, Gordon, Bowen, it's a structure thing. Like, I am preferring Gordon for my own team, simply because I want a dead spot in my forward line than my midfield line. But somebody can equally make a case, just go Voltemade instead and play a cheaper midfielder. That's also fine. But I genuinely think that there are more than 5 midfielders that we will want at all times. Like, I can make right now a list of midfielders that are popular, that people own, good managers own, that are viable picks. Let's start from the top. Salah is a viable pick. Saka is a viable pick. Whether you like it or not, Bruno is a viable pick. Let's keep going down in price. Gordon is a viable pick. Eze is a viable pick. Enzo, Sar, you've got Ndai, you've got Paqueta, you've got Minte, and this is just the playing guys. Reinders, like, these are all playable. I don't know if I've missed anybody, but these are all playable and good picks. So now let's look at forwards. Who are forwards that you must have, that are apart from Haaland? The list stops. Like, you can say Bowen, you can say João Pedro, you can say Voltemade, you can say anyone else, but you can say Mateta. They're all fine picks, but I'm not saying they're like amazing picks. For every Mateta, there's a Sar. For Voltemade, there's a Gordon. For whoever else I listed, there's a midfield counterpart who gets goals as well in those teams, potentially in some cases even penalties. For Gyökeres, there's a Saka. So that's just my view in terms of if you're going budget, then it's better to go budget in your forward line than your midfield line. This is why Calvert-Lewin also works, right? He can let you spend in that midfield slot. Instead of a Dewsbury Hall and a Bowen, consider a Calvert-Lewin and a Reinders or a Minte or a Paqueta. Like, I just think long-term that's a better setup. But that's it for this week. It's not a big week. I'm not expecting huge points. I think it's a it's a week of making marginal gains where your team looks good. You've got all the players in line, hopefully safe for next week, and that would be a good place to be. Now, my wild card. So I've got Pope and Dubravka. You can see here at the bottom left, I've got this box where I'm still not 100% between him and Sanchez and Verbruggen. Now, I know you guys are going to say in the comments, don't trust Sanchez, don't trust Verbruggen. They're both bad defenses. But actually, when you look at the data, they're quite similar. So it's a case of, do you want to go for the Pope pick that everybody else has, or do you want to try this Sanchez Verbruggen from combination? These are keepers, right? You can't make huge gains out of them. So in one way, you just say back the good defense and have him long term. There's a small thing actually with Pope. If I go Pope, now we know Daniel Farke has said that Perry is not going to start this game. He has actually said that because he's been away for 7 weeks. He's not going to start, which means Darlow's going to start. He's playing Burnley. So is there a case that I can go Pope and Darlow and start Darlow this week? Because Pope away to Brighton is probably his worst fixture in the foreseeable future as an away game. So maybe start Darlow against Burnley and then play Pope for the rest of the time. The drawback of this is then I don't have a bench keeper, right? It's a dead spot because Dubravka plays, whereas this guy's not going to play a lot, Darlow. He's not going to play many minutes at all. So then what happens if Pope is injured? My answer to that is if Pope is injured, you just replace Pope, right? So it's a thought. I'm still debating it. I think I border between it's a silly idea to, oh, that would be genius. What if Pope concedes and Leeds keep a clean sheet? But what if the opposite happens? So maybe I won't do that. But it's a thought, so I should share all my thoughts on my team selection, right? So that's the keepers. I think the defense is pretty set. Like, I don't see myself changing this defense. It's got Gabriel and Timber, it's got Senesi, it's got Rodon, it's got Anderson now. Why don't I have Richards, who's been my darling? I just want to show you why I don't have Richards. It's all got to do with my potential benchings, right? Everyone should consider this stuff. So let's say I go Richards instead of Rodon. Who has higher clean sheet odds this week? It's actually Rodon. So this week, theoretically, I'd rather have Rodon than Richards. Of course, look, I understand DEFCON potential and stuff, but let's just talk clean sheets first. Next week, I don't want Richards, right? He's away to Arsenal. Next week, actually, I'll be playing Rodon again and I'll be benching Sarr. So again, Rodon works better from that point of view. Then let's go forward. Game week 10. Who do I like between Crystal Palace and Anderson now? Because I'll always be playing Gabriel. I'll be playing Timber. So who else do I like? Fulham have higher clean sheet odds. I've got Anderson. So this is the week where I will rather play Anderson and not a Richards or a Rodon. So again, this guy is better. Now let's go to the week after. Crystal Palace is 26%. Bournemouth 23%. Fulham 26%. So it's very similar this week. So this is the one week where he's marginally better that if I had Richards versus Anderson, but then go to the week after. Again, Anderson much better, home to Sunderland versus Richards. So I could go Richards instead of Rodon here in this draft and have my nice, sexy, Richards, Anderson, and Senesi plus double Arsenal. But actually, if I'm going to be benching Richards most of the time, might as well save my 0.5. And I'll come to in a second to why that 0.5 is very important when I show you the Salah Haaland version. Where with 3 transfers here, I can go to a Salah Haaland draft. And that would be the plan in Game Week 12. And so I need that 0.5. Later down the line, if Timber wants to be downgraded to a Richards or a Lacroix or a Munoz, I can do that, right? So it's not like I've said goodbye to Richards forever, but I just think it's better use of my squad by having one dead spot in attack and having one really, basement price defender. Then I've put my money where it needs to be on the pitch and on my first bench. So that's why this defense works, and that's why look at your rotation. It's not about the picks. Once you decide Gabriel and Timber, then look at the rotation between Senesi and your fourth and your fifth defender. That's what matters more than who actually you're picking. Okay, midfield is actually even easier. Saka, Semenyo, Sarr, and Enzo are not going anywhere. Let's talk about Enzo for a second. Enzo has not been pictured in training. From all we've heard, there was a Nizar Cancela article that he's fine. Maybe he doesn't play this game, right? Maybe they're being cautious. So what? I'll get Senesi off the bench this week. Like, I'm playing Rodon anyway, so Senesi will come on. So it's not like, for wildcarders, I don't think it's a decision at all. Like, you should be picking Enzo. For non-wildcarders, it is a decision. Maybe they don't go there, and that's also fine. But there's no way that I'm getting spooked from this yellow flag that I'm not picking Enzo at all. And if it's something serious, we'll deal with it, right? I mean, we'll do something later. So I'm going to keep him, and I'm going to start him, and I'm going to hope that either he starts, which is my base case, and I'm hopeful that he starts, or if he's out, then he's out, right? They're not going to risk him if he's got some swelling which has not subsided or something. And you play Senesi. That's why you have your good DEFCON guys who can get you these points if needed. So that's my thinking with Enzo. He'll be there. That's why he's on the thumbnail saying 2-pointer. And then you've got Sar, you've got Saka and Semenyo. I think these are obvious picks. Nothing to be said here. As I said, I'm planning to bench Sar next week away to Arsenal. I don't care who you are. When you're away to Arsenal, I don't play you. Maybe, okay, Haaland is an exception. But Sar is like Rodon home to West Ham will be better than Sar away to Arsenal. Of course, if Sar scores a hat-trick this week, then maybe I'll change my mind. But that's where I am. So Sar is good pick if you can find a rotation that works with him. This is why this back line with Sar works really nicely, because you can actually play 4 at the back next week. Just bench Anderson, bench Sar, bench Marshall. That's where this team works. Gordon is one which I have debated a lot. I have got, I think, 0.7 million in the bank. I can go up to anybody who's 8.1. You know who's 8.1? Mbumo. Who else is 8.1? Words. I'm not going to get them. But those are options. But I just think, penalty taking Gordon, even if he gets 60 to 80 minutes in a game, is good. And his next 4 are actually pretty good. Newcastle's attack is good. Let's see his next 4. Right? So he's got Brighton away, Fulham at home, West Ham away, Brentford away. 3 away games, and then Man City at home. So it's not amazing. But you know what? The way I think Gordon is playing, if you watch the game against England, I had actually a call with Baker, one of those things where we were talking about Gordon because he has him. I wanted to know what he's thinking. Like, there is upside there with that pick. And on the downside, if he does poorly, he matches somebody like a Reinders, not the end of the world, right? I don't have any other thing, right? If you look at the rest of my team, I have nowhere else to put my money. Might as well put it on Gordon, and maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't work out. That's my thinking at the moment. There is obviously another version of this draft, which I'm talking about here, where I can go for Eze in that position. Of course, then I can't get Timber, so instead of Timber, I can get Munoz. So Eze and Munoz instead of Timber and Gordon. But I am very, very likely to go for the Timber and Gordon version, the one that you see on the screen now. So that's where we are, but of course subject to change of mind or whatever. I will see. I have till Saturday morning. I have then Haaland, João Pedro, and Marshall. Marshall, because apparently there's some news that Nuno wants to move to a 3-5-2, and Marshall is a fit striker. He came on before Wilson, actually, in the last game. So am I going to ever play with Marshall? Of course not. It's just one of those things where wouldn't it be cool if he starts starting and you have a 4.4 starting striker? Like that would be cool. That would mean I can get to Salah so easily. But it's just one of those things. Why not spend 0.1 for this a little bit of fun? Like I can go OB as well for 4.3. Let's get Marshall for 4.4. So that's the thinking. João Pedro, I think people are panicking. If you're not on Wildcard, why are you panicking? Like who else do you want in a set of fixtures than Forest away with Ange, Sunderland at home, Spurs away is tough, Wolves at home, and Burnley away? What else do you want? And in this, he's going to play Nottingham Forest, possibly now on penalties if Enzo doesn't play, or he's on penalties anyway, maybe, because he's good at pens, right? Remember. Home to Sunderland, which he will play, again, because he's not playing the midweek game. So, Spurs, London derby, should play. Wolves, home, it's before the international break. He should be fine. Burnley away is a little bit of question mark. It's after the international break. It's a lunchtime kickoff. But you know what? Brazil are actually playing here. I just got an email from one of my friends that Emirates, it's the Brazil-Senegal game is actually at the Emirates. So, and I might be going there. So I'm like, João Pedro's here. He's not going to South America. So he's just a good pick. Like, don't worry, shots will come. When was the last time he played an easy team? West Ham. What did he do? Got like triple return. So players do better when the fixtures are easier. It's not rocket science, but that's how it works. I would pick João Pedro, no question. So that's where, if Bowen had these good fixtures, by the way, I'd be saying the same thing. It's not got to do with me loving João Pedro and not liking Bowen. I used to hate João Pedro game week 1. Those who listen to me know this. It's because his fixtures were okay. He was a minutes risk. He was not on penalties. All of that is changing. He's getting the minutes. There's no Delap. There's no Palmer. Palmer's out for 6 weeks. So good pick, man. Like, that's where I am. So the only things that can change here is the keeper. It's the Timber and Gordon slots. That's about it. and most likely it will stay as it is. So before going, I have to leave you with one last thing, which is how does this team become into a Salah Haaland team? It's actually just three transfers: Gordon to Reinders, Pedro to Calvert-Lewin, and Saka to Salah. So now this is exact money. I'll be okay to afford this because I think Salah is going to drop. And if I can't afford it, I don't need Calvert-Lewin, right? I can get Foster from Burnley or whatever, because I'll be playing 4 at the back pretty much after game week 10. So I don't need all these players. Like, let's say I can get a Calvert-Lewin down to even another non-playing forward, and I can take Rodon up to Munoz. So all of that is possible, but it takes 3 to 4 transfers. This is why go up to 4 free transfers, see if you need Salah. And this also works if you need Isak, by the way, right? I mean, you can take João Pedro up to Isak by downgrading Gordon to somebody else. Maybe Enzo can be downgraded. So it's not like this is the only route, but it feels like with Palmer out for a longer term that Enzo can stay for a while. Sarr can stay for a while. Semenyo can stay for a while. Haaland's not going anywhere. That backline doesn't need to be touched. Maybe Timber can become Van Dijk at some point. But it's really these 3-4 positions that you're playing with to then navigate the fixtures. So that's what I was trying to show, that 0.5 that I saved from Richards to Rodon will be needed for me in Game Week 12. So I'll leave it there. Good luck if you're on Wildcard. If you're not, also good luck. And I finally have Semenyo, so I can have a good game week. All right. Take care, everybody. Oh, yeah, like the video if you liked this. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next week.